Frank Fry is a saboteur who doesn't mind killing Americans for money.
You must watch yourself, Mr. Kane. I'm telling you this for your own benefit, but you have the makings of an outstanding bore.
You can't get away with this, Tobin. Even if I don't stop you, there'll be others who will.
Guys, welcome to a classic film review of Alfred Hitchcock's 1942 thriller Saboteur, starring Robert Cummings, Priscilla Lane and Otto Kruger. And if you know anything about Hitchcock, and I tell you that this is the story of a wrongly accused man going on the run to prove his innocence, you may get that sense of deja vu. Now, this was the Master of Suspense's fifth film since making the trip over to America, and although he'd already been directing for 20 years, he was truly honing his craft here and only a few years away from delivering a decade worth of masterworks. Now, not to be confused with the director's 1936 British thriller Sabotage, Saboteur does have some issues which we'll discuss, but it also has some of the craziest set pieces that he ever shot. Let's take a look. Right, I was going to talk about this a little bit later in the review, but I'll start by saying that Hitchcock's Saboteur is essentially a studio-funded wartime propaganda piece. The majority of the dialogue here is essentially made up of patriotic speeches extolling the virtues of America and fighting off sinister and oppressive external forces. As jarring and on the nose as some of it is, it's forgivable in that there was actually a global conflict taking place at the time. If you've ever seen some of the early Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes films, they do exactly the same thing. But anyway, with that out of the way. Now, Saboteur is a solid action thriller from Alfred Hitchcock, and in more than a few ways, a test run for his 1959 masterpiece North by Northwest. Here we have Barry Kane, played by Robert Cummings, working at an aircraft plant and becoming the framed victim of a saboteur, Frank Fry, played by Norman Lloyd. Now, during a fire, Fry hands Kane a fire extinguisher filled with gasoline that not only helps destroy the factory, but also kills Kane's best buddy.
Like dynamite! Here, take this one.
What about me? Don't I get to play too? You get another one, all right?
Now, as the police have no record of Fry working at the plant, the blame is laid at Kane's feet and he's forced to go on the run in an attempt to head off a Nazi spy ring before they do any more damage. Now, I've just used the term Nazi spy ring there, which might be a little bit unfair as I'm not sure the word Nazi is actually mentioned here at all, but they are certainly fascist agents and they're out to commit terrorist acts across the US of A. So Kane can't just sit around and wait for the police to get their acts together, and a series of circumstances lead him to the fancy ranch of suave spy ring boss Charles Tobin, played here by Otto Kruger, who has him wrongfully arrested, and that's when things really kick off.
You can't bluff me. You're hooked and you know it.
Must I remind you that you are the fugitive from justice and not I? I'm a prominent citizen, widely respected. You are an obscure young workman wanted for the committing of an extremely unpopular crime.
So plot-specific twists and spoilers will be left for you to discover or rediscover. But I will say that our wrongly accused hero finds his way to an isolated lodge where he and his handcuffs are introduced to a blind and wise Good Samaritan, Philip Martin, played by Vaughan Glazer, and his lovely billboard model daughter, Pat Martin, played by Priscilla Lane. Now, remember that billboard bit for later. So, since arriving in the United States with his 1940 movie Rebecca, Alfred Hitchcock was now beginning to earn his Master of Suspense title. Saboteur was the first of his films to feature his name above the title, and he was taking scripts like this and using them as the framework to which he hung half a dozen zany scenes or set pieces. Check out a still impressive bridge jump escape scene 51 years before Harrison Ford stepped off that dam.
Hiya, bud. Hey, what's the matter?
And in a quieter moment, both Kane and Martin find themselves on an isolated desert road where a circus caravan just happens to be passing through. And in one of the most bizarre moments in Hitchcock's whole filmography, the circus freaks must vote on whether or not to turn Kane over to the cops, which is a scene designed really just to espouse the merits of democracy.
The rest of you, with the exception of this malignant jerk, are ignorant of the facts and therefore confused. Thank heaven we're still members of a democracy. We'll put the matter to a vote.
No vote. I'm against voting.
Fascists.
Now, I quite like Robert Cummings in this. He made loads of movies and TV shows, none of which I could name right now. But he does his best with some of those political sermons that he has to deliver and makes a decent, desperate action star when the need arises, or a love interest when he and an initially icy Priscilla Lane eventually start falling for each other. A great sequence where the pair are trapped in a Park Avenue charity ball fuses all of the above and features one of Hitchcock's clever shots as the camera sticks with the pair as they dance through the crowd. Now, apparently Hitchcock's first choices for the leads here were Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. Both of those actors are great, but Cooper's a bit too tough and world-weary for me and not enough of an everyman. Here, though, the villains are the most interesting and entertaining, charismatic characters. Otto Kruger's Tobin and Norman Lloyd's Frank Fry are suitably menacing.
You've done pretty well here. I don't get it.
No, you wouldn't. You're one of the ardent believers, a good American. Oh, there are millions like you. People that plod along without asking questions. I hate to use the word stupid, but it seems to be the only one that applies.
Oh yeah, and I did say I would get back to Priscilla Lane's character being a billboard model, and this is basically a plot in-joke as she continually turns up on highway billboards that our hero drives past, each one cheekily delivering a commentary on whatever's happening in the story. Now, my personal criticisms of Saboteur are in its pacing, really. Eventually, our protagonist will go from man on the run to fake spy, and as the plot drifts from LA to New York, it starts to jump around a little bit and must eventually put its foot down in order to provide us with the movie's now famous Statue of Liberty set piece. That in itself is a mini marvel of visual effects and stunt work. It's still pretty impressive, despite being shot over 80 years ago.
Can you get a grip with your feet?
I can't.
Kane, I'm getting a rope.
They're getting a rope. Hold on, Fry.
I'll clear you. I swear I will.
So Alfred Hitchcock's next few movies were Shadow of a Doubt, Lifeboat, Spellbound and Notorious, and he was still just warming up, really. But here in 1942, with American studio money and his name topping the bill, he'd finally made it, in a way. Saboteur is often accused of being just one of his purely functionary thrillers. However, it still features enough of the director's visual flourishes, cheeky humour, and of course, edge-of-your-seat suspense to be better than 90% of 1942's cinematic offerings. Go check it out.
Yeah. They get things done. They bomb cities, sink ships, torture and murder so you and your friends can eat off of gold plate. It's a great philosophy.
I neither intend to be bombed nor sunk, Mr. Kane. That's why I'm leaving now.